The Pac-12 is the topic of conversation this morning, and that is because today ends the exclusive negotiating period for the Pac-12 with Fox and ESPN. And the question now is, what's next? Because it seems like we have hit the brakes in conference realignment, Big 12 expansion, Pac-12 expansion, and what happens to the Utah Utes? Because you have by CBS Sports count, the number 4 team in the country in the Utah Utes in limbo when it comes to TV and conference affiliation. And it feels like the Utah Utes deserve better. Where do they go from here? Well, if you are Chris Hill, the former athletic director at Utah, who said yesterday he told John Wilner that the Utah Utes and their alumni do not want to leave the conference because they don't have any fans or alumni in Waco. They're all in the Bay Area. Jake, what should the Utah Utes do?
Yeah, I think that's with all due respect, I think that's a rather ignorant take, if I'm being honest. I think to sit here and say that Utah doesn't have fans in other parts of the country, or that Utah couldn't go to the Big 12 or obviously the Big 10 and do nice things is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And to me, if I'm Utah, I mean, obviously the Big 10 is where I want to go, but I think the Big 12 is more realistic. The problem with the Big 12 is that geographically speaking, it's not great. I mean, you're in rural America, if you will. You're in the Midwest, it's a different feel than what the Pac-12 has traditionally had. And as much as I don't like, the ACC and their rights deal and how that's all set up, and, the fact that you have to pay $500 million to leave that conference at any time, they do have, the New York region, if you will. They do have, some bigger markets. So I just think if I'm Utah, I don't think that staying in the Pac-12 just on its own is an option. And I feel like that's what we're kind of hearing without anyone saying it. Well, because we don't want to really go to the Big 12 or we don't want to do this or that. All right, well, what are you left with? If you don't want to go to the Big 12, the Big 10 is probably not going to happen. The ACC is probably a little too complicated to get done. Where else are you going to go? And that's my biggest thing here. Like the Pac-10 now, as it will stand, it doesn't have Southern California. That's a huge problem from a TV revenue per school conversation. So if I'm Utah, I would be trying to get to the Big 12 because I do think there's more opportunity for you there. But it remains to be seen.
You know what I find so interesting about all of this, and specifically what Chris Hill said yesterday? Are you telling me that you can't build a fan base in Waco, Texas? If you are Utah and you join the Big 12, are you telling me you don't have the pull to build a fan base in Waco? Are you telling me that you only want to play games where your alumni are? So you only want to play games in the Bay Area? I just think that's short-sighted. All you care about, if you are Utah, is getting the most money from your TV deal every year. And I think you care about a good quality schedule. And currently in the Pac-12, I just don't think that's afforded to you. And I also think that if you're the Pac-12 and you do not add at least one Big 12 school in San Diego State, I think you're in trouble. And I know that the TV numbers and the viewership numbers and the market numbers, you mentioned the ACC.
Yeah.
The ACC has a huge advantage in that Syracuse is in that conference. That gets you the state of New York. You have all of these advantages in other conferences. What's your advantage in the Pac-12? And that's the thing that's so hard to understand and comprehend, is that I don't see the built-in advantages that are supposedly there that Chris Hill talks about with alumni and fan bases, and I don't see that in the Pac-12. I see history and tradition. I see that if the Big 12 adds schools, and you're already adding some prolific programs in BYU and Cincinnati, you're already adding the city of Houston and that region of Texas, you're adding South Florida. One of the things that is so critical in my mind is perception versus reality. Neither the Big 12 nor the Pac-12 has any momentum. And the fact of the matter is today with this, exclusive negotiating period ending, with ESPN and Fox, it changes nothing.
Yeah.
It changes absolutely nothing. There's never been an expectation that the Pac-12 was going to get a deal before the end of business today. Because if you're the Pac-12, why would you? Why would you want that? When you have another conference, and frankly, the mega money conference in the Big Ten negotiating a deal, don't you want to see what the Big Ten does first? But I think there's also another problem. I think you've got to get this done. And from a football perspective, from a recruiting perspective, you've got to get this done before the season starts. Because if you're in limbo TV-wise and you're having to compete with the SEC, who is not in limbo, and you're having to compete with the Big Ten, who is not in limbo. In fact, the Big Ten has huge momentum. And if you are George Kliavkoff and all you can do is argue back and forth orally with the Big 12, I said orally, with the Big 12, yeah, I just don't see that you have a real path to victory here if you're the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think, and the other problem is the Pac-12 doesn't exactly have some glowing track record of great TV deals. You know, that's the thing to me that is troubling. Like, you're trying to put together a TV deal, or really it should be, the verbiage is distribution deal, because nowadays, you know, you've got TV and streaming and a bunch of different ways you can go about it. So you're trying to put together a distribution deal, but you have never shown the ability to do that at as high of a level as the other conferences. So that's why I say, like, this whole concept of, hey, Utah's going to stay in the Pac-12, to me is ludicrous. I don't see any incentive to stay in the Pac-12 or what will be the Pac-10. You're not going to be playing SC anymore. You're not going to be getting these big-time, you know, games anymore because kids are not stupid.
No.
When you're recruiting players and stuff, they're not stupid. Like, no kid is gonna sit here and say, okay, yeah, I want to go to Utah in the Pac-10 where mom and pop can't really see me on TV ever, or do I want to go to, I don't know, Ohio State where they're going to see me every single weekend? Yeah, I think the kid's going to go to Ohio State, and I don't think that's really a conversation. So that's why I say, like, I just can't, logically speaking, get down with this concept of of staying in the Pac-12. Unless there is some sort of just, like, revolutionary or like over the top distribution deal that, you know, just cranks up that revenue per school number and brings a ton of value to the athlete, I just don't know why you would stay.
And the other thing is, I thought was very interesting was John Canzano compared the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to MLS and talked about how MLS is only on Apple TV, and I don't think that's an option. I truly don't think that putting Pac-12 games exclusively on YouTube TV or exclusively on Amazon Prime, I just don't think that's an option.
Well, here's the thing. That would be better than what you have now. That's the problem.
Absolutely.
It would be way better than what you have now. I agree with you. I don't think for a football product that you just want to be on one singular platform. Like, hey, we're just going to be here, but you can't find us on DirecTV, or we're just going to be here, but you can't find us there. Like, that's never a good idea. But frankly, and it's kind of embarrassing, I guess, that would be better than what you have now, mainly because Dish Network is just not what people are watching their football on.
Yeah, I think people are watching their football on their phones.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to have leverage in these conversations, and I just don't think either one of these conferences does. And that's the biggest issue. And now it seems like, you know, everybody's reporting there's no appetite for the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to get together and merge. And you have George Kliavkoff a week ago, essentially tomorrow, a week ago, saying that, you know, he's not sure if the Pac-12 is going shopping in the Big 12. And I just think we're at the point of ridiculousness. And what the Big 12 and the Pac-12 have to understand is their apocalypse is here. It's not coming. The tidal wave isn't coming. It's here. It's arrived already. You are on death's doorstep. Both of these conferences, one is not better than the other. And I know we talk about this ad nauseum, rather, but who's in a better position, the Big 12 or the Pac-12? I would say neither, because neither one of them have a great TV deal, although I would say obviously the Big 12's TV deal is better. I think you're adding BYU to the conference, which brings you more exposure on ESPN. That's better. I think if you're the Big 12, you have more TV options.
Yeah.
We've talked at length on this show about this Notre Dame Big 12 partnership. Now, Notre Dame's not joining the Big 12 conference, but you can do a deal with Notre Dame as a package on NBC. If NBC is amenable to that and all the parties can come together financially, that makes more sense to me than anything the Pac-12's doing. But is that really a long-term solution? Is NBC a major player in college football? No, but they certainly have the assets to be. Mm-hmm. They can stream for you. You can get in more households on a network like NBC, whether that's USA Network, whether that's NBC TV, whatever it might be. You have a platform that can distribute your content. Every major cable company, every major dish or DirecTV platform has that. Like, that's a big step up for the Big 12. That'd be a huge step up for the Pac-12. Like, those are the things that these conferences need to be talking about. But the one thing that stands out to me about the Big 12 is they cannot afford to just linger. We've heard all about how Brett Yorkman's the new sheriff in town at the Big 12, and business is going to not be what it's always been. We're getting aggressive. Well,
I'm for real.
You've been out on the job a week, and we heard like 15 minutes after your first day that you were going to make some major move. Well, you've been on the job a week, Brett, and nothing's happened.
Come on, let's go, Schleprock.
Let's get to business. Like the Big 12 has to make a move. And maybe Chris Hill is right. Maybe Pac-12 teams don't have the appetite or the desire to join the Big 12. I don't know. But at some point, somebody's got to do something because both these conferences are dying.
Yeah, and I just don't know what that tipping point is or where we get sort of the crack and the stalemate, if you will. Because that's kind of what I feel like this is right now. I feel like at Pac-12 Media Days, George Kliavkoff was just trying to flex on the Big 12 and paint the Pac-12 in this super positive sunshine and roses type state.
Yeah. And
I think that really came off is him doing that instead of being honest about where the conference was at. And I think that, the Pac-12 is, I love, Utah, Oregon, in Autzen, on a Friday night. I love that. Or a Saturday night. I love that. That is, the football game itself isn't really the issue. The issue is that I got to go to some foreign TV channel on some random network to find it. That's the problem, and I don't think people understand just how much it matters to the end consumer that it's easy to find your product. I got news for you. No one's going to channel 410 on Dish Network to find your product. It's not happening, dude. You need to be on your cell phone, on people's cell phones. That's part of the reason YouTube is such a prolific platform, because anybody can access it and it's easy to use. That's why podcasts have taken off. And that's why I say, if you're any one of these conferences, the bare minimum, just the entry point is getting on people's phones. Then I would be looking at TV. That's how I'd go about it if I was the Pac-12 trying to survive, because I want to capture that younger generation.
Well, but I would be going after somebody that's got it all. And again, I know people love and hate ESPN. I'm an ESPN Plus subscriber, and it's worth every single penny of it. I mean, just for the inside stuff that you get from them, the exclusive content you get from them, everything that's streaming on ESPN Plus. If you're a BYU fan, you must subscribe to ESPN Plus. To me, that's what makes the most sense. If I am the Pac-12, I want ESPN. And I think ESPN, again, I think John Wilner's point about how the Pac-12 After Dark could be the saving grace, maybe that was Stuart Mandel that said that the Pac-12 After Dark could be the saving grace because it's 1 million people a game. Hey, whatever it takes.
And I agree with that concept.
If you can make a deal that includes ESPN Plus streaming of every game, because that's what you need. You need a single place, a single home for your games. That's what you need. And if I am the Pac-12, I am really doing everything I can do to make a deal with ESPN, because that's exactly what you get there. All right, let's get your comments in here. Good morning. Dennis Levi says, with the, by the way, a $4.99 tip. Thank you, Dennis. With the number 4 ranking, what do you think Cam Rising's potential is? And do you think Utah could possibly be a contender for the playoff? Yeah, yesterday CBS Sports ranked Utah number 4 in the country, only behind Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia.
Yeah.
And I think that's very justified. I think it's justified. I think their defense is going to be stout. I think they are very deep at the linebacker. I mean, you don't lose a Devin Lloyd and not feel that.
Yeah.
Very obviously. But, I mean, they have depth and they have talent at linebacker at Utah. And I think Cam Rising, this is his club. It's been his club for almost a calendar year now. These guys are behind him.
Yep.
He showed that he has got a ton of talent. And I don't think we've seen the best of Cam Rising. Is he a guy that's going to compete for a Heisman? Probably not. Is he the best quarterback in the Pac-12? Probably not. But there's no reason that Cam Rising can't continue to be really efficient and protect the football as he did last year and take that to another level. I think it'll be interesting to see how they run this offense. And again, as we talked about yesterday on the show, what I'm really interested in is seeing, who's the wide receiver that really steps up and becomes their deep threat. And what does Brant Kuithe do as a tight end / wide receiver? How often is Brant Kuithe lined up tight, and how often are they going two tight ends with Dalton Kincaid and Brant Kuithe?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that we're going to have to get, but Cam Rising's the least of your problems. To me, there's no doubt about that.
And I think to that point, I think one of the reasons they got that number 4 in the country ranking is because it's not just that you have a quarterback for Utah, because Utah obviously has been a defensive-minded school for, since as long as Witt's been there, essentially. So it's not just that you have a quarterback. It's that you have a quarterback that now is coming into his second season and has that experience now. He knows what's coming. He knows what to expect. He has more control. And I think that's the thing when you look at college football rankings and really even in the NFL. If you have a quarterback that is calm, cool, collected, in control, can lead your team, that's going to take you to that next level that you need to get to win the game of leverage. And I think too many years Utah hasn't had that. So now that they do have it, I think that's also what's helping them get that ranking.
Oh, I would totally agree with that. Thank you, Dennis, for the $4.99 tip. Jesse Harsh, good morning to you with the $2 tip. The super sticker, appreciate you on that. He says, in a hypothetical world, and I mean hypothetical world, say Utah joins either the SEC or the Big Ten, which region would they struggle the most with when it comes to recruiting, SEC or Big Ten country? Well, I can tell you right now, they're not going to struggle to recruit. Utah's football staff is already recruiting. We've seen them in Texas. We've seen them prolifically recruit talent out of Florida.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the Big Ten, that'd probably be the landscape where it would be more difficult to recruit places like Pennsylvania and Ohio. One of the reasons that Notre Dame is such a big-time program is because offensive linemen routinely come out of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Ohio and wind up in South Bend, Indiana playing for the Irish, right? You look at going into places like Wisconsin and Chicago where you get lots of talent. I think you would struggle if you are Utah to compete with Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan.
But again, what
Wisconsin.
would help you? What would help you?
Well, if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're able to play in those games. But I think the bigger issue for the Big Ten, and this is going to be USC's challenge, and obviously USC is uniquely qualified because, well, they're USC. But mom who lives in Madison, Wisconsin, mom who lives in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin,
Poughkeepsie,
mom who lives in Poughkeepsie, New York, or Zion, Illinois, or Alton, Illinois, are you going to convince mom that little Jimmy should go to Salt Lake City to play football when he could also go to Wisconsin, Ohio State, Michigan State, when he could go to the University of Illinois, which mom can get in a car and drive to? Because I got news for you. That's a car ride. Utah's a flight. Now, Utah's also going to visit all those, if you're in, hypothetically, again, with Jesse, but hypothetically, Utah's also going to play on the road in those stadiums. But overwhelmingly, half your games are at home in Salt Lake City. That's an hour later for mom. Is mom staying up to watch those games? Like, those are all things you have to consider. There's a lot of high school kids who find tremendous value, especially when we're talking about 4-star recruits, because how many 5-star recruits are going to go to Utah? We haven't seen many, but that's why Utah has this unbelievable development program. But the only thing that is going to keep Utah from competing with SEC and Big Ten schools is reputation, perception, this thing we always talk about, perception versus reality. Because facility-wise, education-wise, quality of life-wise, Utah can compete with anybody. Their facilities are spectacular, and they are only improving.
Yeah.
Their educational, I mean, you can't get a better education than you can get at Utah. You just can't. Quality of life in Salt Lake City is spectacular. I mean, it's everything that you want your child to experience in college. The question is, well, those damn Mormons are going to get you. It's perception versus reality.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as somebody who moved to Utah from the outside, I am not from Utah. When I moved to Utah all those years ago, oh, watch out. The Mormons are going to get you. Like, it's that naivete about what life in the state of Utah is like. But having said that, Utah's not going to the Big Ten or the SEC. That's not happening. Spencer D says, "Suh, dudes."
Bro. Dude.
What's up, dude? He says, "When is Mrs. Jake joining the show?" Dude! Do you have a Mrs. Jake?
No.
No, he's not married. Spencer, stop causing problems, bro.
Yeah, bro.
West Virginia guy says the Pac-12 is dead. Prismac from Poland. My kielbasa sharing brethren.
Yeah.
Anything new about the Jazz? I'm sick of waiting for something to happen. No.
Join the club.
No. Coming up at 7:30, we'll talk NBA hoops on the show. Stick around for that. About 40 minutes away. Neville93 says, "Good morning, lads." Teddy Wayman says, "Sup, y'all." Good morning, Teddy. Good to see you. Ramsey's 10. Greg Hawkins. Hey, Greg Hawkins.
Dude, Greg, what happened yesterday, bro? You went full nuke
Greg
mode
Hawkins
on Twitter,
went
dude.
in.
Like full burn it to the ground mode on Twitter.
By the way, 7 days from right now, Greg Hawkins will be back in the United States.
Wow.
Every blue cheese producing company in the country is going to celebrate the day that blue cheese eating MFer lands in the United States. Now, having said that, there is going to be an army of BYU fans lined up with 50 caliber sniper. Well, I shouldn't say that. Who will stick cougars on Greg Hawkins after his major, what would you call it? Campaign of destruction?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Greg Hawkins went in.
Yeah.
If you don't follow Greg Hawkins on Twitter, you're missing out.
Yeah.
You're missing out. Caleb Hamblin says, "First time waking up early enough to join the stream. Love the show. Thanks, Caleb. Good to see you." Saw, dude. Antonio Ruiz, what's up, my man? Michael Diehard says, "Slack 12 is on death's door." Probably. That's probably both the conferences.
Yeah.
Dead Collector says, "Have we heard any other numbers other than 24.5 million?" We have not. Bob Thompson, the former president of Fox Sports, who's negotiated deals just like this, will join us coming up at 8:30. We will ask Bob about numbers, and because $24.5 million ain't getting it done.
I mean, that's
it's not getting it done.
You know, respectfully, I'm not trying to be egregious here, but that's kind of an embarrassing number. I mean,
it's not getting it done.
Yeah, you look at the other conferences being at 70 million, and you're at 24.5. Come on.
Yep. Let's see. Mardino87 says Little League is starting full pads, high school is starting 2-a-days, and college camp is starting. Excited for football season.
Bro,
yeah.
You know what's on TV tonight, right?
Yeah, the Hall of Fame game.
Let's go.
The National Football League.
Let me tell you what now.
Yeah, man. Come on, man.
Let me tell you what now.
Let's go.
Dead Collector says Chris has to say that, Chris Hill, saying that, Utah doesn't want to go to the Big 12. They don't have any alumni in Waco.
What the fuck are you, Ranger Rick?
David Koresh.
Jesus.
You really think that...
I just felt like that was such a arrogant thing to say.
It is. This is the perception versus reality conversation. Again, the arrogance of the Pac-12 is a real thing, and it is a real problem. Guys like Chris Hill believe that, they poop roses and, like butterflies.
Let me tell you, you don't. Dude, I just can't believe that with where we are now, like 5 years ago, okay, I can understand if, the Chris Hills of the world or, whoever, the Larry Scotts of the world felt like, yeah, the Pac-12 is amazing and we're doing an awesome job. And yeah, we don't have a distribution deal really, but we're working on it. Okay, back then I could kind of get it. Right now, it's a ridiculous take to say that the Pac-12 doesn't need help or we're in a great spot. We're the Conference of Champions, even though those championships are in badminton and not anything to do with making money or your survival as a conference, right? I just feel like they live in like this fantasy world of like where the conference is actually at. And the shame in it is that I love the Pac-12. I love Pac-12 After Dark. I love the caliber of football you get. Is it Alabama, LSU at the Swamp? No. Is it some premier matchup in the Big Ten? Well, no, I guess not. But I really feel like, when you get like Utah and Oregon, that's like amazing. When Oregon went on the road and beat Ohio State, I was pumped about that, dude.
Well,
absolutely lit.
Go back to USC. When USC was Pete Carroll and Reggie Bush, they went to Auburn and they beat Auburn. They beat Ohio State at the Coliseum. Like, you're not that conference anymore, though. You're not that guy, pal. Like, you're not. And the hard thing, I think, for people to digest is that you're not that guy anymore.
It sucks.
It does, because the football's not as good. That's just the harsh reality.
And I think it should be, though. That's the thing. It's one of those things where you're totally right. It's not good anymore. But the crying shame in this whole thing is it should be. The Pac-12 legitimately, because of its geography and the cities you have, dude, the Pac-12 had an opportunity to be better than the SEC, to be better than the Big Ten.
Yes, they did.
And yet we're sitting here talking about them dying, and I just can't get down with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. This hour of the show brought to you by Barbecue Pit Stop. Stop by any of their 5 locations in the great state of Utah, including Lehigh, Layton, Logan, Murray, and St. George.
Yes, sir.
There's a box on the counter. It's got our faces on it.
We may or may not.
We're famous.
Have something coming out on YouTube this week about it.
Hey, I said we're famous.
We are, dude. It's the Monty Show. Everyone knows.
We're a big flipping deal.
Come on.
In this town.
We were all over Twitter yesterday. Everyone knows.
You know. Yeah, exactly. But there's a box on the counter at every barbecue pit stop in Utah. It's got our mugs on it. It's also got BYU and Notre Dame logos on it. And that's because we're giving away a trip for 2 to see BYU and Notre Dame at the Shamrock Series in Las Vegas. All you have to do is go to any of the 5 Utah locations for barbecue pit stop. You see them on the screen: Logan, Lehigh, Layton, Salt Lake City, and St. George. Drop your name in there and then join us in Lehigh on September 17th for a big watch party. We'll have wings and pizza. It's going to be an amazing time. You're going to see smokers galore, and we're going to watch BYU and Oregon. And at the halftime of that game, we are going to pull the winner out for a trip to 2 to see BYU and Notre Dame in the Shamrock Series at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where you'll get 2 nights at the Palms Hotel Resort Casino, as well as 2 tickets to the game and a $250 gas card to get you there. And it's all compliments of our friends at Barbecue Pit Stop. If you're just tuning in this morning, the biggest stories in sports. Today is the end of the exclusive negotiating window for the Pac-12 with Fox and ESPN. What does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean a whole lot. And the bigger question now is, where will the Utah Utes end up? Yesterday was an interesting day because John Wilner, the fine writer for the Bay Area News Group, you can catch his work, really in a multitude of places. But if you check him out, Bay Area News Group, he is a guy that has the pulse on his fingers on the pulse of the Pac-12. And he talked to former Utah Athletic Director Chris Hill in his column yesterday. And Chris Hill talked about how he sees no benefit for a Pac-12 team to go to the Big 12. And that's because the Pac-12 doesn't have alumni in Waco. They're all in the Bay Area.
Congratulations, but that's bullshit.
And one of the things that we've been talking about this morning is, what's the right thing for Utah and other Pac-12 programs to do? And I would tell you it is to find a way to create a merger between the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and then, make a larger pot of cash for everybody to split. Because if you don't, and you wind up staying, as a weekend conference after USC and UCLA bail to the Big Ten, there's just not a lot of love there for you. There's $24 to $30 million per school per year in a TV deal. That's a huge problem.
Doesn't work, man.
That's a huge problem. And the other thing that gives you a good indication of that is that the Pac-12 is trying to save its relationship with UCLA. I don't think there's any question that George Kliavkoff, the commissioner of the of the Pac-12 last week, made it very clear that they would welcome UCLA back to the conference. And there is an all-out effort right now amongst Pac-12 presidents to try and convince UCLA to stay in the conference and not go to the Big Ten. And if they do that, obviously that gives the Pac-12 the Los Angeles market, which means, hey, now all we got to do is add a school like us, San Diego State, let's say, and we're in business. Now we've got all of Southern California. Is that likely to happen? Well, this is the teetering tipping point that the Pac-12 finds itself in, because what happens if the Big Ten goes and makes a huge TV deal and their schools legit are getting $100 million per school per season in TV rights deal? Now UCLA and USC have no problem signing their rights over to the Big Ten.
Are people Myron?
That's the issue for the Pac-12. And let's just get something straight right now. The Pac-12 is not now and likely will never be in a position to garner $100 million per year per school in TV money.
Facts.
If the Big Ten gets that deal and the Pac-12 hasn't made a significant move to shore up its ranks, the Pac-12 is dead. And I still maintain, and we'll ask Bob Thompson, the president or the former president of Fox Sports Networks, this question. Is there any scenario where the Pac-12 not only survives, but thrives? Because, Jake, I can be honest with you, I don't see that scenario happening.
Yeah, and I just don't know where the sense of urgency is from the conference. Again, and I don't mean to be repetitive, but when we were on remote, last Friday, I had said, hey, like, you got to come with a plan. You got to come with like some semblance of an idea of like what your mission is or your goal is to get back into a good place. And that's the thing that baffles me. There's just no sense of urgency or like, hey, yeah, this is a real problem for us. Like, yeah, what if the Big Ten is getting, $100 million a year in TV money per school? What happens if we can't get UCLA to stay in the Pac? Like, what happens if none of this works out for us? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I got news for you. The non-revenue generating sports are not going to cover your ass when you're not making money. That, like, I just couldn't believe that was the sentiment. So yeah, if I was George and I was the people who are running the conference, I would have a major sense of urgency to, as you said, get something done with ESPN or maybe it's NBC, but you got to have something done here.
If I'm the Pac-12, I am doing everything I can do to get into bed with ESPN.
I mean, even if it's 40 or 50 a year, you're never going to get to like 80, 100. That's just not where you are.
The thing that you cannot do is if you are the Pac-12, Pac-10, you cannot continue to be like, okay, some of our games are on Fox. Other of our games are on Jimmy's satellite dish down over there in Pacoima.
Hey, guys.
And then maybe some of our games might be on ESPN, if we're lucky, on a Friday night. You can't continue to live that way. You just can't. Oh, by the way, none of our games will be on DirecTV because screw them. We're the Pac-12.
Like, you see what I mean? Like, that sentiment is crazy. Like, who do you think you are? It's like,
no.
It's like these guys who do these fake fights or whatever, and then they think that they can go and box some actual fighter and think that that's going to work out.
And
like,
Dax Johnson makes a great point.
Johnson.
Good morning, Ted. Dax
Johnson
says, morning, guys. I don't understand the better than them mentality that comes from the Pac-10.
Yeah.
Both the Big 12 and the Pac-10 need each other to survive. They're idiots. I totally agree.
Like,
I don't understand that mentality.
The falling off point from, like, if you look at where the SEC and the Big 10 are, and then you look at this gap between those two and then the Pac-10, I guess we're calling it now, it is massive, bro. And then you put the Big 12 that's a little bit ahead of the Pac-10, but really not that far ahead. Like, it is huge, bro. Like, the gap between those two in the Pac and the Big 12, and then you just have the ACC kind of just chilling over here. They're just kind of chilling. Clemson's going to win that conference every year. They're going to do some nice things in basketball. But I feel like the ACC just kind of flies under the radar. And so my point is that if you're the Pac-12, the road here to success is not that difficult. Get a distribution deal done and then get UCLA back. It's that simple.
I think that's your road to survival. I mean, but again, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. I mean, is there any way that they thrive, the Pac-10? Because if you keep UCLA, you're surviving. That doesn't mean you're thriving. You're only sitting there. And I understand that teams and conferences and how long are these grant of rights going to be? Because are you telling me if you're the Utah Utes, you feel good signing a 10-year grant of rights with the Pac-10?
No.
That seems good to you. No. I would not do that. Hell no. I would not do that. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do, in my opinion. No. Yeah, but again, I get it, man. I'm not the one that's got to negotiate these deals.
I feel like this is like the ultimate like perception versus reality sports story. You know how in sports, like, there are times when, it's like, look at Deshaun Watson, which we'll get to a little bit later, but, like, just the concept that Deshaun Watson's people think that 6 games was a light suspension is crazy. Just the concept that the Pac-12 thinks that they're sliced bread is crazy.
Yeah.
How do you view yourself like that in the landscape of everything that's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. 2K says Oregon State and Washington State are the only ones that don't have anything to be arrogant about. Well, honestly, I could tell you the entire conference has nothing to be arrogant about.
Yeah.
I mean, what has Washington really accomplished? What has Oregon really accomplished? Because if you look across the college football landscape, there's not a team in the Pac-12 right now that's a powerhouse. There just isn't. Even USC is not. Utah just won the conference and went to the Rose Bowl last year. They're not a powerhouse because perception is reality in this business.
Yeah.
And when I look at the powerhouses, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, like those are is Michigan a powerhouse? No, they're not. Right? Is Texas viewed as a powerhouse? No, probably not. Oklahoma, I would say Oklahoma is viewed as a powerhouse, right? But now they're an SEC team. You can't tell me that the Big 12 has any chance of keeping Texas or Oklahoma. That ship has sailed. And I really don't believe that the Pac-12 has any chance to keep USC or UCLA.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening, right? So when I look at the real powerhouses in college football, and I say this every year, I'm a Notre Dame fan, born and raised in Chicago. Is there anybody in this room who thinks Notre Dame's a college football powerhouse?
Obviously not.
When's the last time they won a national championship? I think it was while Manti Te'o's girlfriend was alive. I can tell you that as a bitter.
Doesn't make you feel responsible.
It's probably not something. Anyway, The point is, catfishing aside, I just don't believe that there's more than a half dozen teams every year who can win the national championship. And I don't believe that Clemson's one of those teams. I don't believe that Florida State, Florida, Miami, I don't believe they're one of those teams.
But why is it that the SEC has teams that compete every single year? You think it's some accident that Alabama competes every year? Do you think it's some accident that Nick Saban went to Alabama of all schools and was able to build it into what he was able to build it? Or you look at Georgia or any of these other SEC schools, it's not some accident. They have distribution deal. They have many things that work together with that distribution deal to allow them to go and get the best, absolute best talent, which allows them to dominate college football every year. Because I got news for you. When you win, what are you? More desirable. What does that mean? More TV money, more leverage from your side of the phone call. So that's why I say winning football games at the core of it is what matters. But nobody cares if you won or lost if they can't watch the football game. Nobody cares if you won or lost if it's not on SportsCenter, right? Nobody cares. It just does not matter. So that's why I say it's just such a murky, convoluted, ass-backwards thought process that they have right now.
And the funny thing is, look at the SEC's TV deal. Do you think the SEC would have rather waited another year? Don't forget, they're going to ESPN and ABC. They're leaving CBS, and they're getting $300 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think they would have liked to have waited a little longer to make more money on that deal now? I think they probably would have, especially adding Oklahoma and Texas. I mean,
Texas.
You look at what. Now, again, $300 million instead of $55 million is massive, right? But you look at what the SEC offers. They offer the biggest games every single week.
Yes.
I mean, you have any time that Alabama plays anybody, it's a huge game. But Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, you have
Alabama, Florida last year.
You have major games.
Yeah.
You have major rivalries. You have The national championship, let's be honest, the national championship is on the line every week in the SEC. It's never on the line in the Pac-12. That's just the reality.
Or the Big 12.
Well, with Oklahoma in the conference, it has been. It has been on the line, right? I mean, and Baylor, I mean, the big step that Baylor took last year, like, I could make the argument that the only team that is in position on a regular basis is Oregon. Because I don't know that Utah's ever been in position on a regular basis to compete for the playoffs. I don't know that that's been the case for Utah. In fact, I'm pretty certain that it is not. What's up, my guy, Desert Viking Russell? Good to see you, Russ Anderson. He says, Monty, what's up? You were right about Bryce Harper, and I love the show. Your pal, strongman Russ Anderson. Russ, good to see you. I'm always right about everything because I know no wrong. That's a lie.
No.
Dead Collector says, LOL, they didn't beat Texas, though. Okay, Mike Maples, good morning, too. He says, Chris Hill's thoughts are like asking Isaiah Thomas what move the Knicks should make. He'd be willing to give the Jazz 8 picks and a player. Yeah, absolutely he would. Let's see. Zayman says, at Steve, the Holy War every year on Thanksgiving Day, and Chris Hill turned it down, saying our players want to be home for Thanksgiving. Chris was the only one who wanted to be home on Thanksgiving. Chris Hill is one of the main reasons that Utah has struggled to grow and expand. He as an athletic director, he routinely stood in the way of progress at Utah. Period. I just don't see how there's any other way to spin that. Zayman says, yeah, Chris Hill has a chance to sign a deal back in the 90s for the Holy War to be played on Thanksgiving Day on national TV and turned it down. Yes, he did. Victor Gawana says, a good point I heard last night was the expanded playoff is looming in 26. Are these schools wanting to sign a grant of rights past 26, not knowing if they will be included? It's a big question.
Yep.
You got to expand the college football playoff. You have to. Going to be talking NBA in 15 minutes, but right now we're talking about college football expansion. Don't forget, again, today the Pac-12's exclusive negotiating window with ESPN and Fox Sports expires. It doesn't mean a whole lot other than now we're on to what's next. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. I just think that the Pac-12 has to do something. Because I honestly think there's more stability in the Big 12 right now than there is in the Pac-12.
Yeah, well,
when you're adding Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, and Central Florida, like you're in a much better spot.
Yeah, I mean the conversation with the Pac-12 is, are you going to be in existence? And at least with the Big 12, you're like, all right, yeah, we're going to be playing football.
Yep.
Two different things.
Russ Anderson says, how many Utah fans can name 5 players on this season's roster? Try it. It's hilarious. So I think I don't think that.
I don't think that that's a fair indication of fandom. In college,
and
college sports changes.
I think most Utah fans can. I mean, I also don't think that we need to do a BYU versus Utah fan thing. I just don't. I think that's the easy road, right? Justin Hayward says Utah and the AZ schools should be in the Big 12. They should. I think Utah, Colorado, Arizona State should join, and I think that SMU and San Diego State should join. That's what the Big 12 should do, in my opinion. And if you are Cal and Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State, I think you're in a bad situation. Those schools have very little leverage.
Yeah.
The Stanford AD the other day said that nobody is asking them to join conferences. The Big 12 is not called Stanford. And I think there's a good reason for that. I do believe that Stanford and Cal are those hippies in the Bay Area. And I think the Big 12 is that conference. It's like, yeah, we don't want all those homeless people. Like, that's who the Big 12 is.
Yeah.
I don't think they want that. I think they want Arizona State, San Diego State, and SMU.
You and your mama are hillbillies.
I think they must have Utah and Colorado as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the reality of where the Big 12 is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Justin Hayward also says better football and fans there. In the Big 12, yeah. I mean, as far as fits go and as far as health of conferences, it's just my opinion. It is just my opinion that the Big 12 is a better athletic conference on the whole. Certainly if you're Arizona, I think you would rather be in the Big 12 because you're a basketball school at Arizona.
Yeah.
Right? Until you start winning games consistently, and I don't mean 1 year. When you start winning football games consistently, we can talk. Your football stadium is empty. Nobody cares about Arizona football. Nobody. You look at Arizona basketball, that is a real valuable brand. It is as valuable, in my opinion, as UCLA is. I think if Arizona and UCLA leave, the Pac-12 is done in basketball. There is nothing to talk about. If both of those schools leave, and if Utah leaves, you're done.
Yeah.
Like that conference.
It's over.
If I'm the Big 12, I am after the Arizona schools and I am after Utah. Those are my three must-haves, right? I'm taking Colorado, I'm taking San Diego State, and I'm taking SMU. That's it. That's a death knell.
Yes.
You're done at that point. Absolutely, you're done at that point. K. Drew says all non-blue blood football schools that are doing well now need to realize that those schools are one bad coaching hire to mediocrity, i.e. 2008 Kansas Jayhawks. Well, I also think you have to understand that you're going to have one-sided schools. I mean, nobody wants Notre Dame for basketball.
Yeah.
They want Notre Dame football. Nobody wants Duke football. Nobody wants Arizona football. Frankly, I don't know that anybody wants UCLA football.
No.
And nobody certainly wants Kansas football. But look at the Big 10 versus the Big 12.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the state of Iowa. With all due respect to my good friends in Ames and Iowa City. Are you really excited about Iowa as a brand? Are you excited about Iowa State as a brand? You're not. You're not. And while Iowa City has slightly more, I want to say, population than Ames, Iowa does, is there really more value in the Iowa brand than the Iowa State brand? Is there really more value in that? I mean, obviously the Hawkeye name is bigger. Sure, certainly the Hawkeye name is bigger, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Are you bringing more viewers to the TV set? I don't think so.
No,
like
I guess
so
not.
You look at all of these conferences, everybody's got weaknesses in their conference.
Yeah.
The SEC, nobody wants Vanderbilt as a TV market,
But baseball,
as an educational institution, great. But they bring you baseball. That's neat. They have a tradition in women's basketball. That's neat. Football pays the bills.
Yeah.
So every conference has a weakness, man. Every single one.
That's what I'm saying. If you're the Pac-12 and you know your weaknesses, how are you not like helping yourself?
I'm
Like,
surprised, frankly. You know what I'm surprised about? That the ACC has not been more vocal and aggressive. Because, again, and if you're just tuning in, we talked about Syracuse. Syracuse is in an interesting situation because Syracuse brings you New York as a TV market. The Orangemen bring you New York. Great, great, great basketball program in history and tradition.
Yeah.
And they bring you a lot of TV viewers, right? Why has the ACC not been more aggressive in expanding? Why are you not adding? If I'm the ACC, frankly, is there no value in adding the Big 12? Merging with the Big 12? Why are we talking about partnerships? Partnerships are not what we're after. We are after mergers. If you're the ACC, are you just going to sit here and wait for somebody to suck you up, or are you going to go and get aggressive and create a future for yourself? Because that's what you're doing here. So I look at a team like Syracuse. I think the ACC, nobody talks about why Syracuse is important in a TV deal. Well, you should start talking about that, in my opinion.
Are we clear on that?
I mean, I look at the ACC, and you are in the worst place possible. You're just there. You're just there.
Yeah.
You're not important at the moment. You're not unimportant.
You exist.
You're just there. You know, and you already crowned Clemson as your champion. You're just there. Man, you're just chilling.
But even Clemson, like even since, the Jesus Christ lookalike and Trevor Lawrence left, what has Clemson been?
Well, they've been a conference with a history of basketball, because that's what the ACC is.
Yeah.
With a couple of exceptions. Look at the ACC. Would you rather have them as a basketball conference or a football conference?
Basketball.
Basketball by far.
All day.
By far.
Yeah.
So my point in all of this is, and the reason I bring all this up is, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. One of the reasons Bob Thompson, the former president at Fox Sports Network, is going to join us at 8:30 Mountain Time. One of the reasons we want to have him on is he's been in the room for this. He's been in these conversations. He has a history. One of the things I want to ask Bob Thompson is, what's the value of Utah's brand? What does BYU bring to the Big 12?
Yeah.
Ultimately, Bob, what does it mean that today the exclusive rights expire with Fox and ESPN for the Pac-12?
Yeah.
Ultimately, is the Pac-12 going to survive, or are they ever going to be in a position to thrive? You know, like, who's in a better position? Like, there's all these conversations that can be had. And I think here locally in the state of Utah, and certainly for all of our Phoenix viewers, I know we have a lot of viewers in Phoenix. We have a lot of viewers in Boise as well. Where is Boise State? Boise State.
Boise.
Where's Boise State?
You can't say it normally.
No, you can't. It's just not the right thing to do.
But
But where is Boise State?
Yeah.
Like, look at the comment on the screen from K-Do. Boise State's not a blue blood. Boise State's not a huge program.
That's out of the window.
Boise State's waiting for a phone call. And I would imagine they've called the Big 12. I would imagine. But is Boise, even though it's exploding as a population, is Boise somewhere where you're like, I got to have that TV? It's probably not. Well, but Monty, you said SMU. Those are a bunch of lawyering pricks. Well,
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
that also gives you the entire Metroplex, because then you would have TCU in Fort Worth and you'd have SMU in Dallas.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, if you add SMU to the Big 12, what do you have? You have TCU, you have Texas Tech, you have SMU, and you have Houston. That's every corner and every major populace in the state of Texas.
I'm for real.
Why wouldn't you do that? I don't know if you guys know this or not, but football, they play a little football in
Did
Texas.
you know football is kind of a big deal in Texas? Did you guys know that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, all of this matters, man. Like, all of this matters. The college football landscape is going to be very different a year from now.
So you have all this happening, all these
Yes.
things that we've just discussed, yet you still have the Pac-12 perceiving the landscape the way they do. Hey, we're the best. We're the greatest. We have a conference of champions. Everything's amazing. Don't know how it's possible.
Yep. Eric and Raleigh, good morning to you, friend. He says, new conference, Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Coach Saban.
This is Coach Saban.
Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Auburn, USC, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Just take the 10 best teams in the country and go full pro. Make them all employees, right? I guess that's what you do. Eric also says, and the Big 12 doesn't even know who the Pac number is. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They don't know. Talking NBA free agency, and if the Jazz are better off holding on to Donovan Mitchell until next summer, we're doing that in 6 minutes. Stick around for that. Big Mugamba, he says, Boise is busy getting ready for deer season. See, that feels like you're stereotyping.
Why are you doing that, man? Why are you taking shots, bro?
Mugamba, that feels like you're not a fan of blue astroturf. And that's kind of, the people in Boise don't really probably appreciate that.
So you better check yourself.
Right? You better check yourself, man. Austin Tolman says it makes more sense for the Pac-12 to wait on a TV deal. They have less schools to share the revenue. They could go 10 and still do a conference championship game. They could. But why would your 10 remaining teams want to do that?
And the thing is the problem with that, and I totally get where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree. The problem is because you've done such a piss poor job with distribution deals over the last decade, you don't have time to wait. Because if you wait, right? If you wait too long, now you miss the boat. Now you miss the boat on the money. Now the Big Ten has beat you. The SEC has a deal. The ACC has a deal. Hell, the Big 12 even has a deal, right? And then you're kind of this last sort of, odd stepchild, if you will, trying to get a deal. That's the problem. You don't have time to just sit on your hands and be like, well, let's wait for the Big Ten to finish their business.
We got the big Mugamba going after deer season and you going after stepchildren. Man. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Kay Nuren, good morning to you. Says yes, San Diego, Hawaii, and SMU in the Big 12. I'm personally not a Hawaii guy in football. I'm going to Hawaii in a month from now.
Big Hawaii guy, just not in football.
Big Hawaii guy to go see it.
Yeah.
I just think that travel makes them very unattractive.
Yeah.
That travel is the biggest issue. I mean, that's a huge
it's an issue, dude.
problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem. Wow, there's a lot of people are in on deer season. This is no good TV deal for the Pac number without USC and UCLA. That's why you got to have San Diego State. You got to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no doubt about that. Jeff James, good morning too. He says, I'm not sure that George Kliavkoff was a good hire for the Pac-12. Well, he certainly came out swinging at the Big 12, didn't he?
But you have to understand, like, obviously, yes, I'm baffled by some of the stuff he said at Pac-12 Media Day, but part of it is he is doing his job. So there's like two sides of it.
Yes.
And if I was a Pac-12 hiring, someone like George, my homework or mission for him or whatever his task wouldn't be to just try to be a PR guy and paint the conference in a great picture. Like, sometimes I feel like there is value in saying, yeah, we don't have a great distribution deal. We just lost one of the biggest brands in the conference, and we have work to do, and we're acting with a sense of urgency, and we want to get something done. Like, if he would have said that, would that not have just lit the football world on fire? The football world would have been like, oh, wow, like, there's been a change in the Pac-12. Now let's see what they do. Let's see how they operate. But we didn't get that, and that was disappointing.
Yep. Bob Thompson, former president of Fox Sports Network, joins the show coming up 1 hour from now. Stick around for that. Want to remind you that this here fine program is brought to you by our good friend Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage, NMLS number 278545. Call him today, 801-543-9666. Devry Davis is a guy that you can trust. He's written 3 mortgages for me. He is the only guy that I will talk to about mortgage for one very specific reason. He's very good at what he does. I mean, Devry Davis is an excellent mortgage guy because he communicates. You never have to wonder what's going on with your mortgage. Hey, am I in underwriting? Am I out of underwriting? Are we cleared to close? Hey, by the way, before you get to all that, you have to afford a down payment. And I know one of the biggest questions in the mortgage industry right now is, can you afford a down payment? Yes, you can. When you call a guy like Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage, 801-543-9666. And listen, I know that money is tight. I know there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy right now. But the one thing that you can count on is real estate. And what are we seeing now? Mortgage rates are going down. And when you look at availability of real estate availability is going up, mainly because the price of real estate is, again, going down. It is more affordable now than it has been at any point this calendar year. Your interest rates are as low as they have been at any point recently, so get after it. If you are struggling and wondering, hey, can I afford that house? Call Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage, 801-543-9666, and he will get you into that house that you've been wanting. Houses are sitting on the market. The way that you win a negotiation when you're trying to buy a house is you're a cash buyer. You're like, Monty, I'm not a cash buyer. I'm struggling to afford a down payment. Well, guess what? Devry Davis can make you a cash buyer. He's going to give you a letter that says, yep, Jimmy, Bob, and Susan are qualified for this mortgage. Sell them your house. You'll walk in, you and your agent, your real estate agent will walk into that house and you'll say, yep, we're cash buyers. We're ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. You'll write that offer. It'll get approved. And Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage is going to execute a mortgage for you that's going to put you in the best financial position for you and your family. That's why you trust Devry Davis. Call him today, 801-543-9666. And the other thing, Jake, you and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
When you call Devry Davis, you're not just some small fish in a huge pond.
Yeah.
You actually talk to him. You deal with Devry. You can text him. You can call him. And one of the best experiences that we've had with Devry is sitting in front of our townhouse that we wound up buying in Daybreak.
Yeah.
During the height of the competition for houses in this state. I texted him an MLS number. He got back to me in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And said, yep, here's this situation. We talked about whether it was FHA. Hey, should I go conventional here? How should I write this offer? Like, he's like, hey, here's how I would handle it. Here's what you're qualified for. Get after it, kid. Like, that's the level of service you get from Devry Davis. You're not just some guy. You're not just some other dollar sign when you work with Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage. NMLS number.
Hello.
278-545. Devry Davis and Academy Mortgage are equal housing lenders. And by the way, Devry Davis is the reason you're going to see BYU and Notre Dame. And I'm really super excited about this. We're sending a listener +1 to see Notre Dame and BYU at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, October 7th and 8th. All presented by our good friend Devry Davis at Academy Mortgage, as well as our friends at Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh, Logan, is a huge store with a great butcher.
Amazing butcher, dude.
Really?
Amazing butcher.
Seriously. Lehigh, Logan, Layton, St. George, and of course our good friends at Murray, the barbecue pit stop in Murray. We're having a huge viewing party for BYU and Oregon at the Lehigh Barbecue Pit Stop coming up on September 17th. I'm pumped. It's going to be amazing. Thanks to all of our sponsors. And again, you know the way this show works. We talk about this all the time.
Yep.
We have sponsors on this show now. The show has grown exponentially. And we really need you guys to support our sponsors. So when we talk about mortgage or we talk about smokers, and you're going to see we're going to add a few more coming up as well, we need you guys to go there. We need you guys to say, hey, Devery, I'm calling you to let you know, hey, thanks for supporting the Monty Show.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I need a mortgage, or I need to refi, or hey, I heard about you on the Monty Show. That's what we need you guys to do. So please do, in fact, do that.